This is KLEKLP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council.
Jonesboro's community radio station. Your life, your music. KLEK 102.5 FM.
Good Wednesday morning, Jonesboro. This is meteorologist Tim Root with your KLEK 102.5 forecast. Mostly sunny today. The high temperature in the low to mid-80s, light southwest winds. Mostly clear, about 55 to 60 overnight. Partly sunny in the low 80s with light winds Thursday. An increasing chance of showers, partly sunny, near 80 Friday. And more showers expected over the course of the weekend. We'll keep you updated. Jonesboro, that's your KLEK 102.5 FM weather.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Benji Hire. All bars and cafes will close in Brussels from Thursday for a month to limit the spread of coronavirus, with around 1 in 7 people currently infected in the Belgian capital. Protests in Kyrgyzstan have continued for a third day as opposition forces failed to unite around one single leader. The president there claims to have the situation under control. And the UK could boycott the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics over the treatment of Uyghur Muslims in China.
It's 9:01.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
KLEK 102.5 FM. Good morning to you on your Wednesday. It's October 7th, 2020. This is Community Conversations. Kato Wonder is in the studio with you. I'm joined by Jonesboro Police Chief Rick Elliott, who joins us every first Wednesday of the month. And we also have joined us via phone, Kubila Jones, host of Community Conversations. If you missed it earlier, we had Chief Elliott on for our Wednesday morning Bible study, which he also does every first Wednesday of the month. But now we're going to talk about all of the latest happenings with the Jonesboro Police, and there is quite a few things going on. So, Chief, we're just going to go ahead and let you take it away.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and thanks for tuning in today. It's a beautiful day here in Jonesboro, and we're in the fall season, and as you say, a lot of things going on in life, a lot of things going on in the city, and where do you want to start?
Okay, well, let's start with the crime report that was just released. That was actually, I shouldn't say crime report, it says monthly.
Our monthly report,
report. Lots of little bit nuggets and tidbits. So what are some trends and some things that you have noticed?
We'll kind of start at the top, work our way through. And for those of you that are listening, if you would like to see our monthly report, you can go to our website, jonesboropolice.com. Our monthly reports are published on the website, and you can look at the statistics that we're speaking of today, along with our annual report at the end of the year. So we begin our monthly report talking about the emergency communication, or the 911 division, and kind of give the listeners a amount of call volume. 21,137 calls came into dispatch last month. So, for a handful of people working in a center, you can see the call volume, that goes on around the clock. And of course, our 911 dispatch is this is where everything starts, and so as you can see, there's a lot of things going on, and a lot of moving parts in that department. Out of that 21,000 calls that came in, JPD handled 6,444 of those calls. So as you see, in the police department, our call volume is a little bit higher this time than it was last year, but we deal with a lot of calls every day, and just kind of give you an idea of the numbers. You start looking at the medical calls that are going on, and how many times the ambulance services in the city are responding. You're close to 1,000 ambulance runs, last month. So again, there's a lot of moving parts in the city. Last month we filled out 1,359 incident reports. So again, a lot of things that's taking place within the city. Our criminal investigation division opened up 60 cases. A crime scene, our CSI unit, a crime scene unit, processing unit, processed 8 crime scenes. We do have an in-house lab that we do a lot of our own processing, and we did over 20 cases in-house. Fingerprints rolled for the public, 235. So you get teachers, people coming in for concealed carry permits, cab drivers, folks that have to have fingerprint and background check for their business or for what they do. This is roughly about the number we run every month, is over a couple of hundred. So it takes a person, it's a full-time position, kind of rolling fingerprints and dealing with sex offender registration. If we look at sex offender registration, we have a total of 120 sex offenders registered here in Jonesboro, and our Ernest Ward is our sex offender registration specialist. He takes care of the fingerprints and dealing with the sex offenders and making sure they're in compliance, and if not, then he'll seek warrant for them and get them picked up.
Now, a question about the sex offenders: are all 120 on the list visited each month, or is it done in rotating batches?
No, this is the total number of registrants that we have, and then depending on their level, if at a certain level, then we will do area notifications that you have a sex offender living nearby. But this is what he has in total that he has to keep up with, and they have to stay in compliance by. If they change addresses, then they have to come and notify the police department of address change, and it's when they fail to make changes and try to skirt around the system and we catch them, and then they violate the law and subject to prosecution.
I continue on the report.
Our Internet Crimes Against Children Division, we opened up 22 new cases last month. Just kind of show you is that our internet predators are out there. So again, if you're listening, just be mindful of what your kids are doing on the internet, because there are predators out there that try to lure your kids in and get them involved in some bad things, or could ultimately result in an abduction type case. So just be careful of the internet and what's going on. Make sure you know what your kids are up to and looking at, and who are they chatting with on the internet.
I've also noticed an increase lately in people being arrested for child pornography.
Correct. It's sad to say that there's many out there that's downloading and distributing child pornography, and as those cases come to us, we certainly investigate them and prosecute them, but we know there's hundreds, if not thousands or more out there that's doing that it's a potential problem for us. It's for the whole community. Moving on, in our ICAC division, our digital evidence examination, they conducted 47. So that's could be computers or cell phones, things like that. Like I said, we have capabilities of doing forensics on cell phones and computers. We get back over to our processing. We can take bullets recovered from crime scenes and run them through NIBIN, which is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, and we can match those bullets up to, say, a gun that we found, and so each bullet has distinctive characteristics that are left by the barrel from the gun it's fired for, and a lot of times we can take bullets from crime scenes and guns that we find on people, and sometimes they match up. So this has been very beneficial in solving cases. Street Crimes Unit, they've taken over $25,000 worth of drugs off our streets and seized over $19,000 in assets, of a total of 36 arrests. Drug Task Force, they opened up 78 cases last month. They closed 75 of those. total arrests for the month for them was 223.
I'm looking at this chart. It's methamphetamine played a pretty big chunk, followed by marijuana second. Then other drugs was like the biggest one, but I guess this is like miscellaneous. And
Yeah,
then
pills and things like that.
we got some prescription drugs mixed in there as well.
Right. It's methamphetamine has really been on the rise. As you can see, we don't see a whole lot of crack cocaine anymore, but methamphetamine usage has really gone up over the past year or so, and we're seeing a lot of it, coming out of Mexico, and because being manufactured down there, a lot of it's coming in the country at a pharmaceutical grade, so it's more potent than what people were making around here. And we've had several overdoses, and some of these lives were saved by the officers arriving on the scene and administering Narcan, which all officers are carrying at this point. Last year we had around 15 Narcan saves, from responding officers coming up on somebody that has overdosed on opioids.
Now, how does Narcan work for those listening who may not be familiar with it?
It just counteracts the receptors that from the drug that has affected the body's the system, and just counteracts that. It's kind of temporary, but it gives them a lot of times these drugs will suppress their respiratory system, and they'll quit breathing. And when you administer the Narcan, it's a nasal spray, and they'll counteract that, and they resume normal breathing function. But if we come upon Narcan does not harm anybody if somebody's unconscious and we suspect it's an opioid overdose, and they administer Narcan, and if it was not an opioid overdose but something else, then there's no ill side effects from it. So the benefit is great. The risk to the patient is just very, very minimum, if really none at all. So the fact that we are having to carry that now, and the fact that we are saving lives, people that would have died if it wasn't for these officers getting to them before the ambulance or anybody else could. But that's just one of the other problems that we face and deal with on a daily basis. Moving on down to the arrest for the month, a total of 569 arrests for the month. Court Services, which is another division that falls under the police department, we currently have 560 active probationers come out of district court. The numbers are down from this time last year, primarily due to the fact that court was closed for several weeks, months due to the COVID, and they're playing catch up now on getting the backlog dockets processed. So most case numbers are starting to rise back up. Moving on to traffic enforcement, our traffic accidents were at 290 street accidents last month. That's just a little bit higher than it was this time last year. When COVID started back in March, those numbers dropped down to 220, 230. But now that traffic is back to somewhat normal, our accident rates are back up. So these numbers are a little concerning to me. We step up our efforts on reducing them. We've recently been awarded our STEP grant for seatbelt enforcement, distracted driving enforcement, and DWI enforcement. And this is a yearly grant that we get that officers can be paid at time and a half off of this grant money to go out and work seatbelt enforcement, speeding, and distracted driving and DWI enforcement. So that's all they do when they work these special assignments. And the goal is to get people in compliance and try to get this number of traffic accidents down, because, these accidents, can have an effect on you as an individual somewhere down the road, because you get high numbers, then your insurance rates, can be affected at some point in time. So it's to everybody's advantage to have safe drivers and be mindful of what you're doing when you're out on the street. As you can see, we had a couple of fatalities last month, which is not good. Traffic stops. Officers on the street made 1,889 traffic stops last month. Again, we're trying to gain compliance. We're not ticket driven. As you can see, our written citations were only 137. Written warnings were 73. So we're more about trying to get compliance from the driver, and then instead of ticket driven. That's the goal. Is just bringing the infraction to the driver's awareness, and hopefully they'll do better. When you get down to the fleet maintenance, you can kind of see what we
had a huge spike.
We had a big spike
from 2020 to 2019.
12,157 and what it took to maintain the fleet last month versus 3,555 this time last year. We do have an aging fleet, and so we had a couple transmission repairs and motor replacement. So that cost is up due to those big projects. The good thing is we have two ASE certified mechanics that work in our shop, and they do all of our work in-house. So unless the vehicle's new and it falls under warranty work, our two mechanics are able to replace motors, rebuild transmissions, rebuild a motor, whatever needs to be done, keeping our fleet up and running. They have the capability of doing so, and it saved the city a large amount of money. The first year that we hired Kurt, he saved us over $60,000 in shop labor alone. If we would have had to send cars to repair shop, that's not counting the parts, but just what we would have paid in the labor hours at another place, that was over $60,000 in savings. So having Kurt and Mark in the shop has been huge benefit to us. Again, they do all the mechanical work, and Mark takes care of our wiring work. So when we get a new car in, we install our own blue lights and sirens and consoles and all the electronics.
Now, when you say, Chief, that the police fleet is aging, what is the average age of the police car that you have?
Well, we have some that go back to 2004. Just a few of those left. I have several 2006s. Now they're in the CID, the Criminal Investigation Division. As far as the oldest patrol car would be a 2011 Crown Victoria. Now it's about the last year they made those. So the old Crown Vics, they're the old workhorse. They hold up. Of course, that car has got a frame under it, so if they're wrecked, they're easily to rebuild, versus these newer cars, the Tauruses or Explorers. They have a unibody, and a lot of times when they're involved in an accident, then that car is not repairable. So that's puts a little burden on us when something like that happens and you can't fix the car.
Now, are the cars insured? Do the city have insurance policy on there where it could be replaced?
Yeah, we have insurance plans with Arkansas Municipal League insurance. Sure do. But at 180 vehicles in inventory, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on, but we do have routine and preventative maintenance because, again, these officers, they need to know that their vehicle is dependable and safe in the time of need, because they do drive at high speeds at times, and we want to make sure the brakes and everything is mechanically functioning properly. And when they come in for routine oil changes, then our mechanics do a thorough inspection rotate the tires, inspect the brakes, inspect the tires, make sure there's not any abnormal wear or nails or screws in them, and then make sure the brake pads are adequate, make sure the joints are not any problems there. So once they get on the rack, Kurt and Mark do a thorough inspection of each unit, and then they write up a report and let us know where we're at, and so we can kind of project on, you know, the future needs. And sometimes they can get an idea of maybe a transmission starting to go bad, so we start looking at, you know, the cost of transmission repair, things like that.
All right, so anything else on the monthly report that you want to highlight?
No, that's pretty much the highlights of that. And again, if anyone is interested in the full report, you can go to jonesboropolice.com, and that report and past reports are there for your viewing.
All right, let's go to Quabila for our next question.
Well, I just wanted to ask, based on the report, what are some areas that are, well, all of them are of high concern, but what are some areas that the police are kind of reshifting their focus to when it comes to the crime, to try to reduce crime in those areas? Any particular area or issues based on the report?
Well, we're always, we run data and look at our stats constantly and try to put resources in the areas if there's a spike in crime activity or any kind of illegal activity, then we try to dedicate more resources to that area. So when we do monthly reporting, and the shift supervisors go over this and make adjustments. They do this daily. They look at things that are going on and trends in certain areas and adjust accordingly. Same thing with our traffic division. If we're having an area where there's a lot of accidents, then we'll increase our efforts in that area and our presence in that area to try to get motorists to, you know, comply. And a lot of times just the visibility will bring people back to paying attention. If they see a police car, they tend to stay off of the device and in fear of getting stopped and ticketed.
Okay. Now that we are having to wear masks more often in places that we weren't before, are you seeing a spike in robberies in places that maybe never experienced a robbery?
I don't think we've seen a robbery in any place that has not ever seen one. Things have gone on as they always have. Yes, the mask sometimes makes it a little bit difficult in getting a person identified. But on the other hand, we do still post pictures on our Facebook page of suspects involved in certain criminal activities, and we're still getting people identifying that person. So, you know, last year we made 170 cases off of our social media, posting pictures of, can you identify this person? Now that masks have come along, those numbers are down, but the fact is that people still recognizable wearing the face mask. And, you know, when I'm out off of the way from the job, you know, I can be shorts and T-shirts and a ball cap and a mask, and, you know, people still know who I am. And so just because you got a mask on doesn't totally make you anonymous to others.
Okay. Another issue we've talked about is people's cars getting, well, broken into, basically. Yeah. And some people, you know, unfortunately, leaving their doors unlocked. Have you seen any number changes up or down in those cases?
You know, unfortunately, that's probably one of our biggest problems in the past several years is vehicle break-ins or people not locking their vehicles. And we've been harping and stressing on this for years, and I've been on radio here several times, you know, please stressing to listeners, you know, please lock your vehicle. Please don't leave things of value in plain sight, you know, where somebody would be tempted to break out your window and steal it. This is a plea we've made for years, and now that the holiday season is coming upon us, we'll be even more diligent in getting this word out and stressing this, that, hey, lock your car, don't leave things visible, and, regardless of where you live, don't think you can leave your car out there and leave it unlocked and not be, subject to being victimized. It has happened all over town, and so just, do your part, and then, more important, if you see something, and say something. If you have somebody suspicious in your neighborhood, then you can certainly call the police and we can check it out. But, so be a good neighbor, look out for each other, but more important, lock your vehicle.
Got a couple Facebook shout-outs. Shout out to Patty Cheney Lack. Appreciate you for checking in on our live feed. Linda Johnson Frazier says, good morning and hello to Chief Rick Elliott.
Good morning.
Will Glass says, big shout to Rick Elliott. He has done a great job in the Jonesboro community.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
I appreciate you for checking in. Quabila? Quabila still with us?
Okay, yes, I'm still here. Okay, I know you mentioned earlier about crimes against kids on the internet. We've had this discussion before.
Sure.
Again, since what school looks like has changed for a lot of parents.
Right.
Have you seen a rise or maybe a spike in more predators on the internet because there are quite a few more kids at home?
I really hadn't had a chance to sit down with the ICAC bunch, but just general conversation, I think we have seen a rise in that kind of activity because kids are at home and have been at home and been on the internet. So, during this times of COVID, there's so much downtime that, kids get bored on the internet and they're subject to being, preyed upon by these predators. So again, it's to the parents, it is extremely important that you monitor what your kids are up to and who they're chatting with.
All right, yes, parents, watch your kids. We're going to go to a break. Back with more with Chief Elliott. Don't go anywhere. This is Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
What's one of the most powerful gifts you can give your child? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. It's not some high-tech gadget you can pick up at the store. It's a sense of belonging. So, how can you instill that in your kids? At home, let your kids know they're important to you and to your family. Affirm their positive character traits. Encourage their unique gifts. And let them know that their thoughts and opinions matter. Then, when you're out in public, praise them to others and proudly claim them. This is my daughter, Rachel. She's an amazing young lady. This is my son, Brian. I'm so proud of him. Give your kids a sense of belonging, and they'll never have to look for it elsewhere. Remember, your family first.
For more resources on today's topic, go to markmerrill.com. The Family Minute with Mark Merrill. Helping families love well.
Made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization committed to service to all mankind. Kappa Nu Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha on Facebook.
Brought to you by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, dedicated to the purpose of achievement. Jonesboro Alumni at gmail.com, Jonesboro AR Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity on Facebook, and Jonesboro_Kappas on Instagram.
Starks Auto Plaza and Auto Service now under one roof. 2829 Redwood Boulevard, serving the Jonesboro community for over 5 years. They offer wholesale pricing to the public on vehicles, financing for everyone, and synthetic blend and full synthetic oil changes with spin-on filter with vehicle inspection included. Starks Auto Plaza. We never say no. 870-203-9980. Details at starksautoplaza.com. KLEK thanks Scott Young and Andy Storage and Rentals, LLC, for helping us serve the Jonesboro community by providing a Go Mini storage trailer. Andy's offers storage units, storage, and moving containers. Details 870-897-7999.
It's me, your heart. High blood pressure is serious, and I can quit whenever I want. Just treat me better. After all, we're in this together.
Get your high blood pressure to a healthy range. Visit heart.org/blood pressure from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
KLEK thanks the staff of Life Strategies Counseling Incorporated for helping people through hard times in life such as depression, family issues, stress, abuse, and more. They offer counseling and therapy for all ages, individuals, families, and groups. They are located at 1217 Stone Street. Phone number 1-866-972-1268 or online at lscihelp.com.
Arkansas Early Learning prepares children after 5 years old for kindergarten by offering a secure learning environment, qualified teachers at several locations in Northeast Arkansas at no cost. Applications are available at arearlylearning.org.
Arkansas Early Learning is a nonprofit organization.
Coronavirus.
Knowledge is power.
The Post Office, FedEx, UPS, and Amazon deliver mail and packages to you and your neighbors on a daily basis. But everyone wants to know, can you contract the coronavirus disease from a package in the mail? According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, currently there is no evidence to support the transmission of COVID-19 associated with imported goods. And there have not been any cases of COVID-19 in the U.S. associated with imported goods, including mail.
Coping
with coronavirus.
From the Power News Radio Network.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
We're back on Community Conversation on KLEK 102.5 FM. With our guest, Jonesboro Police Chief Elliott, talking about all of the recent goings on in the Jonesboro Police Department. So I wanted to kind of shift gears, talk about something that we brought up off there before we started. You recently got a grant that's going to allow you to hire some more officers.
We did. Received a Cops for Hire grant through the Department of Justice, and that has given us 5 new officers to add to the department, bringing our total number of sworn officers up to 170. So that was a grant that we were pleased to receive, and always looking to add more bodies to the street so we can get out here and be more efficient in what we do. With this grant, the Department of Justice pays 75% of their salary for 3 years, and the city only has to pay 25%. After the 3 years, the city will pick up the whole grant or the whole salary. But this gives us a chance to add bodies at a minimal cost to the taxpayers, which is good in both directions. We are actually working off a Cops for Hire grant from 3 years ago that we awarded 3 officers then. So these grants come around yearly, and we try to apply, every year. And like I said, 2 years ago we were awarded 3, and this year we were awarded 5. So worked out well. Also this year I had received a grant to dedicate an officer to work in gang activity.
Okay, and that's definitely a good thing. And speaking of additions to the force, if you have followed the Jonesboro Police Department Facebook page, you might see a new addition to the department. It's a brand new K-9, and they're looking for your help to give them a name.
You are correct. K-9 Officer Cash is coming up for retirement. His handler is Officer Heath Loggins. And so we have a new black German Shepherd with tan paws. Beautiful dog. I think you saw his picture on our Facebook. And this dog was purchased by Stadium Auto Body. And so they were gracious enough to step up and purchase the dog. And I just want to do a little PR and get the community involved and give us some names for what you think would be, a good name for a police dog. And we had several great responses last night. So we're going to take those for the next couple of days, and we'll pick out some of the most liked names and common, if there's repeat names, and we'll kind of go through them all and make a decision and go from there. And if we select your name, then we'll invite you up to get a picture with the dog and, give you some credit for helping out on the name.
There's some police swag as well.
That's right.
All right, and shout out to Cash. I'm going to let Q tell her Cash story of Cash at KLEK.
Well, it was the last time he was here. First of all, shout out to, Sergeant Racy now, who was always laughing at me because I love animals. And I was asking all these weird questions anyway. Cash was hype beyond words. He had to just sit and chill out for just a minute because he was getting overheated. But he had this tennis ball that was very wet. But he was hype. He did good for a moment. He was a good,
He loved the radio.
Good guess.
Yeah.
But eventually had to take him out. But I really enjoyed having him there and getting to see him and interact with him. And so he's been a great dog on the force.
They have been. We have a great K9 unit. Our dogs, we look for a dog that's social, so we can bring them into any kind of environment, no matter the age group, and they will interact with the public because it is a PR tool. Besides a working tool, it's a great public relations tool for the department, and everybody loves the dogs, and they do a phenomenal job in what they do every day and keeping the streets safe and taking drugs off the street. But people do like to interact with them. They like to pet them, and so that's one of the things we look for when we start looking at dogs for the department is their temperament and along with their working capability. And so there's a lot that goes in before we purchase a dog. There's a lot of videos we look at from the vendor, and then once the dog gets here, the company Blue Street K9 that we buy from, they do a lot of assessment to make sure the dog will suit our needs. And they have washed out dogs that that been brought in that just weren't going to cut it. So again, it's just like our officers. I always want the best applicant or that I can find.
Okay, you mentioned about Cash retiring. What is retirement like for a K9?
Well, the Cash retiring, Heath, the handler, will have first option on keeping the dog, and Heath has elected to keep the dog. So he will stay at the house and become fat and lazy, probably. But Cash will have a new buddy, this new German Shepherd, so he'll have a playmate. But instead of Cash jumping in the Tahoe and going to work, it'll be this new German Shepherd. But I think Cash and Heath's wife probably be,
I'm sure Cash using dog language can still teach a new dog a trick or two.
Probably so, but I think Cash will start to enjoy the lazy life, and because he's worked hard during the time he's here, and he's jumping in and out of the truck daily, and it puts a lot of wear and tear on these dogs, and so like I said, he's at a point that he's getting a few aches and pains, and it's starting to bother him. And we're not going to work an animal that's starting to have some discomfort.
Typically, how long does a K9 work on average? How many years?
It just depends on the dog. We look for about 8 years, 8 to 10 years. We've had some that had a medical out before that due to health issues, and some may go a little bit longer, but it just depends on the health of the dog, and just like anybody else, if you can't work due to health reasons, then it's time to retire you.
Gubila?
Yeah, so what type of situations do you bring the dog out during traffic stops or, I guess, home visits? Like, what warrants it's time to bring the dog out?
Sure. If there's a traffic stop made and an officer suspects there may be drugs in the car, then it can call for a K-9 unit to come and assist. Dogs respond to calls where people may have fled from the officers. They're great in tracking people down. We have some dogs that are great in article searches. You can take an article and throw it out in the field, and the dog will find it for you. And as Officer Dustin Smith did with his dog back in the case where the lady was abducted and subsequently murdered, it was Dustin and his dog that initially found her cell phone on the side of the road at the point of her abduction, and which was huge, part of that investigation. And then the following day, it was Dustin and his dog that found her where she had been buried. So these dogs have a lot of skills and a lot of capabilities, and they're a huge asset to us. And you know, if we have a tool that our agency, that a smaller agency, you know, needs a tool, then we certainly always go to help out, especially on a situation like that. But
go ahead.
No, it's just very interesting to watch them work and how they train. These handlers put a lot of their personal time into training these dogs and working on their obedience and their tracking and just what it takes to run a police dog. There's a lot of time and effort involved in it, and their family. I mean, you know, if the officer has to go to a school or something, then the spouse is left to, you know, care for the dog while the officer's away. So the dog becomes part of the family, and you know, he come work time, he jumps in the truck and, you know, does 7 hours on the shift.
Got a couple Facebook shout-outs. Linda Johnson Frazier says, name him Cash. Joe Hafner says, Cash has been a great asset to the police department. It's been a pleasure to watch him work. And Robert Dwayne says, good morning, Chief, and great Bible study this morning.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you all.
So if you enjoy having Chief here on Community Conversation the first Wednesday of each month, you can also catch him the first Wednesday of each month at 8 a.m. for our Wednesday morning Bible study as well. Always a pleasure to have Chief join us for both programs.
Yep, man, good morning, everybody. And always a pleasure to be here and just having a little conversation with the community, because, you know, I always like community feedback on what we're doing.
All right, let's go back to Kabila.
Okay, so I know that there have been quite a few talks with individuals and groups about community policing, improving the relationship just between residents. So as of now, what are some things that have come across your desk that you can share, or what are some changes that have been made or in the process of being made? And then what will community policing look like going forward?
Well, you know, our community policing efforts have really been hampered with the COVID situation. We had to stop our Citizen Police Academy program. So until this pandemic is over, it has really restrained us from getting out in the community. Now, we have had one-on-one conversation with you know, small groups on different things, and that's still ongoing, which is good. We're still meeting and talking about things, and so that dialogue, you know, we don't want to stop, but bringing people together in large groups, you know, we just can't do at this point. On the other hand, under the CARES Act, with the Department of Justice money that we have received, I was able to, with this federal grant money, to upgrade our training room by adding multiple cameras in and microphone system where we can set up and do a Zoom type meetings or virtual type training. So we're looking at maybe in January bringing our Citizen Police Academy, doing a online version of it. And so the good thing is, you know, we would not be limited to just the classroom size. we could actually accommodate more people. So this is something we're trying to gear up and kick off. We're having to modify our curriculum a little bit because, as you know, in CPA there's a lot of hands-on projects that we do, and we will still bring people in, but we'll just have to break it down in different groups. So we're trying to just change the way we do business, and because we still want to be out and stay connected with the community, and we always value the community input on things that's taking place.
Kawila?
Okay. Can we talk about the issue that we talked about off air a little?
Sure.
Okay. So I asked Chief about, we're seeing a rise in, how can I say, disharmony among some residents and police departments across the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I haven't heard or seen anything like this in Jonesboro. I don't get out much, so anyone can correct me. However, we hear, that people should just comply. And this is not about race right now.
Right.
We hear that people should comply. But when some people are complying, or they're making an effort to comply, they're still being mishandled, for lack of a better word, by police officers. And, what are we supposed to do as citizens? We feel that we're getting attacked, and we've seen video, and this is not about the particular case. It's not about what happened before or after. It's about in that moment when that person is being attacked, they're being kicked, punched, whatever. I mean, your natural reaction is to get into a defensive position, roll your body up or whatever So anyway, long story short, help us understand as citizens, what can be done? What needs to happen?
Well, a lot of these situations, what you see on mainstream media, you kind of get the video starts right in the middle of the altercation, and I always ask, tell me the rest of the story, then we'll assess it from there. But the short answer to your question is, yes, if you're told that you're under arrest, whatever, then comply. If anything goes awry at that point, we have body cameras, we're recording, everybody else is recording at this point, then we'll deal with the situation if something is inappropriate. Some people, want to argue the fact that this arrest is legal or illegal. That's a matter to be settled in court. If, we're not going to argue it on the street whether it's legal arrest or not legal arrest. The bottom line is, if the officer has felt that you have done something, violated the law, that you're being placed into custody, and you've been told that you're under arrest, then by law you're required to comply. Failure to comply results in another criminal charge against you. And if you resist arrest, that's another criminal charge against you, along with the original charge. So, yes, it becomes a point of when things go bad, are you fighting the officer and the officer's fighting back, then that's a problem in a lot of cases, and that's the part that gets shown is, how did this all start, and then, we're yet on the video. So you got to look at each situation in its entirety before you pass judgment. But again, with all the cameras around, anytime there's the use of force, then supervisors always go back and look at the use of force and determine if it was within policy or not.
And with that, we're going to get ready to go to our break. We'll speak with Jonesboro Police Chief Rick Elliott. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back with more in just a few minutes. This is Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. Scam artists routinely pose as tax preparers during tax time, luring victims in by promising large federal tax refunds or refunds that people never dreamed they were due in the first place. Scammers prey on people who don't have a filing requirement, such as low-income individuals or the elderly. They also prey on non-English speakers who may or may not have a filing requirement. Their goal is to dupe you into making claims for fictitious rebates, benefits, or tax credits while charging or even overcharging you for the bad advice. Or worse, they file a false return in your name. You may never know that a refund was ever paid. If you have a filing requirement and are due a refund, scammers get you by promising inflated refunds based on fictitious Social Security benefits and false claims for education credits, the Earned Income Tax Credit, or the American Opportunity Tax Credit, among others. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, focused on joy in our sisterhood, power in our voice, and service in our hearts. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by the Guide-Right Jonesboro Kappa League, a nonprofit organization that guides young men to a life of achievement. Kappa League Jonesboro on Facebook, Jonesboro_Kappa League on Instagram, and Jonesboro Kappa League at gmail.com.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Support for KLEK is brought to you by...
Years ago, Gail decided she would help me out by mowing the yard with our new lawnmower. I came home, the mower's in the front yard, running, the hoodie came down, V-shaped, lodged in the ground. Gail and Todd came out of the house. 2 little pine trees had been run over. I touched the mailbox, it fell over. Gail said, I stood it back up. Todd was small and been riding on the mower with her. He said, I just want it off. Glenn Sane, and God bless our troops.
KLEK 102.5 FM salutes small businesses. Small businesses promote local character and success, keeping money in the local economy, local jobs, entrepreneurship, community well-being, and so much more. Contact us today to learn more on how your small business could be featured on KLEK for as little as $25 per month. Shout out to Always and Forever Pet Grooming, offering baths, nails, and haircuts for dogs and cats. 2929 South Caraway Road, Jonesboro. 870-520-0925. Shout out to Divas Dynasty Massage Therapy, healing and relaxation for the body with hands anointed by God. 870-253-7684. Divas Dynasty Massage Therapy on Facebook. Shout out to tax refund firm DBA Cool Cuts Taxes, tax preparation and holiday and refund anticipation loans, 1411 Franklin Street, Suite 6, Jonesboro. 870-520-7470, 870-331-8311.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Now back to Community Conversation on KLEK 102.5 FM with our guest, Jonesboro Police Chief Rick Elliott, and we are now going to go back to Quabila with our next question.
Okay, Chief. I'm not trying to pick on the police. I'm just asking some general questions.
Sure.
And so in extreme cases, though, when you have officers and even some chiefs resign before a case even goes to court in the incident of these traffic stops, what does that say and look like? And then how would you handle your officers if something like this came across your desk?
Well, sure. It's situations that we've seen across the country are horrible, and you go back and look at the policy and training that the officers have had or haven't had. In a lot of cases, is the situation. But something does happen, then anytime there's an incident of use of force, we do a use of force report. We require a supervisor review, and then that information is forwarded up to my office. So if there is a gross violation of policy or kind of misconduct, then we'll deal with it. It could be suspension, it could be termination. If there is a policy issue that needs to be addressed, then we'll make policy changes. But we use model policies that are adopted across the country with International Association of Chiefs, and that's the trend across the country. Is a lot of departments may not use a model type policy. When I say model policy, these are policies that's been held up within courts, that's recognized across the standards. And I think this is where the President's task force is trying to take law enforcement in the country, is to get agencies to standardize their way of training across the country and make sure certain criteria is met in officers training across the country. Our officers are very well trained. We do more training than most agencies, but there's some smaller agencies that doesn't have the time to do training. They may not have adequate policy, but the fact is that these model policies are out there. Any chief or sheriff can look to, and you take it and adapt it to suit your needs. And by doing so, you can keep your officers in your agency out of a lot of trouble. But policy is a living document. We always look at our policies, and anytime there's a critical incident that takes place across the country, we always, as command, we always kind of sit down and discuss it and talk about it. And you learn from others' mistakes in life. So how did this agency deal with it? What's the good points? What's the bad points? We would do this. We would not do this. So as these things unfolded over the years, we always take and look at it and assess, and then adjust accordingly, and realize that there are these shortcomings, and then we need to fix them. And then a lot of cases, a lot of it boils down to community relations, and certain areas were strained from the beginning. And that was one of the first things I realized in 2014 when I was appointed this job. There was, community relations were strained in the community. And so that's why a big proponent of bringing the department back to community-oriented policing philosophy, getting the officers out there with the public, contact with the public, interacting with the public. They patrol the same areas every day so they can learn the residents that they're protecting and serving, and the residents get to know the officers. So I think that is extremely crucial, and we have seen the results from it for the past 6 years, and so it's not a perfect place, but we're always striving for excellence. And by working together with the public and taking the public input, then we can make this community a much better place. And I appreciate everybody's help and and input, and this is why this conversation, this radio show is important, because I always do appreciate the feedback from the public.
And we definitely appreciate you having you on, Chief. We got about a minute and a half. Any final comments, any shutouts, anything else we did not cover?
Well, I think we covered quite a bit. We did have National Night Out last night at the only one in town at the Northside Ballpark. Dr. Charles Coleman, our councilman, got this event organized and put on. We didn't quite have the interaction with the public that we would like to normally see. It was more of a drive-through event, but I did get an opportunity to speak with some of the people driving through, which is always good to have conversation with the public. So still a good event, but we would hope for better interaction. But once this COVID is over with, maybe we can get back to normal and doing more interactive things.
All right, well, Chief, we want to thank you for stopping by. And just a quick programming note, today around 12 noon, check our Facebook live stream as we will stream a debate between the candidates for Arkansas House District 53, Sean Onley and John Milligan. That's going to come from the local Kiwanis Club. We will bring that to you live on KLEK. And our KLEK in studio debates resume tomorrow with the Ward 3 Position 2 candidates. We got Linda Denny and Chris Gibson. So you guys stay tuned to KLEK as we bring all of this to you. You guys have a great and blessed day. And this is All Gospel Wednesday. We got great gospel music all day long. This is KLEK 102.5 FM.
Thank you for listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.